Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Exeter Science Park's next webinar. We've got James Court and Josh Winfield here from NatWest to talk to you today. And they're going to give you a bit of a taster of the NatWest Business Boost programme and hopefully give you some insights and ideas to take away and that will help grow your business. You'll see at the side there's a chat panel, so if you've got any comments, questions, please do pop them in there and we will come back to them at the end. And so I'm going to hand over to you guys.
Brilliant, thank you.
So, sorry guys, I was just trying to type, proving that I can't multitask and type at the same time. Hi everybody, you can see some names on the side of people I know. Lovely to see Chris, Mark, Laura, Martin, Mickey and co. Today's webinar is all about talking to you about how you can grow your business in lots of different kind of ways, but putting some foundations in place for you. So our subject is welcome to the power of mindset. And my name is James. I'm James Court from the NatWest Business team locally in Exeter. And this is my colleague, Josh Winfield, on screen with you now, who heads up our NatWest Business Builder Entrepreneur for the UK. It's absolutely great to have Josh on here. And some of you already know me locally, heading up the NatWest Boost program. And the two really interlink. The whole thing is about helping entrepreneurs to grow their business and to accelerate their business. And I just wrote some notes down here and as I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today and how we were going to present this to everybody. And today's presentation is going to give you really a taster of one of the key modules of the Business Builder program, which is called on screen Power of Mindset. And you may well have heard some of this teaching in the past, but I don't think ever before has it been more relevant for any of us to really think in this time about how we can apply what it means to have a growth mindset to our businesses, perhaps even to our lives, how we live, our families, especially at this strange and very difficult time. But this really is the idea of this, is it will give you a foundation and a bedrock for you and your business of how you drive yourself forward at this time and where you take your ideas and how you grow your business, how you pivot your business and how you change in your business at this time. So what I'm going to do is hand over to my esteemed colleague, the wonderful Josh Winfield, to take you through the start of today's presentation. So thank you for being here. Josh.
Thanks, James. I see you've conveniently avoided our really, really hideous headshot photos, which is merciful for everybody. So yes, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for joining us. As James said, there he is, the cheeky chappy himself, and then there'll be a hideous photo of me. There it is. Never fails to underwhelm anybody. As James said, I look after the Business Builder program across England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland, the entire UK, and I'm very, very privileged to do so. It is an online accelerator program. Prior to that, I've worked within the entrepreneurship team within NatWest for about 3 years, mainly as a one-to-one business coach. So I have about 2,500 hours of one-to-one business coaching all around the concept of mindset development. The view of both the Business Builder program, which I'll talk about in just a second, and the entrepreneurship team within NatWest is if we can help an entrepreneur to overcome whatever barriers they may have within their mindsets, then they become a better entrepreneur and the business is in better hands as a result of it. We would never dream of telling you how to run your business. You love it, understand it, and are under the skin of it far more than we ever will be. So what we can do is help you to overcome those personal barriers. And that's really what today's all about. Prior to that, I had a business myself. I owned and operated my own business for about 6.5 years and successfully exited that. And since then, I've worked in a number of startups and SMEs as well. So love the ecosystem of being involved in new enterprise, innovative businesses. And that's really kind of how the entrepreneurship team within NatWest operates. It operates as a startup within a corporate, if you like. And as I said, so for the last 9 months or so, we've been putting together the Business Builder program. Now, the Business Builder is a free online digital digital business accelerator, basically, that is available not just for NatWest customers, it's available to anybody. And as I said, it's completely fully funded by us. And it works in 3 really key ways. The first one is you've got access, if you register, you've got access to digital learning. And what we mean by that is a Netflix kind of experience where you register with just your email address and a password, and you've got access to a very much a Netflix style player of content. And this is content for you to digest in an order that is important to you. And so we have content on there to help you develop your mindset. And if what we go through today sows the seed with you, there's a whole host of material that you can go on there and build your thinking on. It may be around financial well-being and getting your financials right for your business, particularly at this moment in time, or even more appropriately just now, a whole host on customer discovery and validation with changes in trends and behaviors of customers as a result of the situation we're in. We're finding a lot of people using those as well. So you digest in your own order. It's all very, very interactive. So it's not just videos hosted on a page. It's very much online learning material that appeals to a whole different kind of learning styles. And then supplementing that, we have our wraparound events. Very much like what we're going to go through this morning, we have 10 workshops as part of the Business Builder program, which are all designed at really fostering some thinking within you. It might be stuff that you already do that you want to build upon. It might be stuff that you've never thought about before that's now important. But we have 10 workshops covering anything from how to write a great 60-second pitch, the power of mindset, through to customer development, how to deal with pivoting and diversifying your business model, right the way through to building a resilience and continuity plan for your business should we find ourselves in a difficult situation again. So we kind of feel like there's something for everybody, but we're always more than happy for you guys to be the judge of that. But you get access to all of those events as well as part of the program. And then finally, an online community. Now, this was something that we hoped would sort of bind the offering together a little bit as a nice to do. Certainly since COVID-19, this has been the most important part of the program. This is about 3,500 entrepreneurs together in our closed Facebook group, which is an opportunity to share skills, gain new skills, partner with businesses at opposite ends of the country, to challenge and be challenged around your pitch, around your business model, certain ideas, and fundamentally to be held accountable and feel like you're not on your own. And so you get access to all those 3 pillars by registering for the Business Builder program, and you can do so just with that URL just there via the NatWest website, or you can put Business Builder into Google and it will absolutely come up. But what we're going to go through today is really sort of the nucleus of all of our thinking. Mindset shapes everything we think and everything that we do. And so I'd like to start with a question. Forgive me, the formatting on the slide has gone a bit off there, but we talk about mindset a lot. We hear this definition of mindset very, very regularly, and it can be classed very much as an umbrella term. What does it actually mean? What does it cover? Well, the dictionary definition is that your mindset is an established set of attitudes and beliefs held by an individual. And that's true, definitely. And it's certainly the case that as adults, we are a product of the 5 people we spend most time with. So at the moment, James is somewhere between his wife and his 2 children and himself. And as a lot of people are at this moment in time. But that's never more true than when we're a child. And so we have to be very, very careful when we're around the thinking. Not to spare them those kinds of things. It's all around that child thinking. And so as a result, we grow, and as we grow up and get older, our mindset takes shape. It's not necessarily influenced by what we do or what we think. And quite often what can happen is we can attitudes, beliefs, thought processes, and so on and so on, that actually we're in the process of having a mindset that doesn't necessarily represent us. It represents the people that we grew up. Just quickly, I'm getting quite a delay on the line. Could I ask you both to go on mute? Is that all right? That's it. That's brilliant. Thank you. So as I was saying, so your mindset can quite often be shaped when you're a child by inheriting the attitudes of the people that you're with. So if somebody has particularly strong beliefs or attitudes, you can inherit them and then they become part of us. So we don't necessarily realize that, and they don't necessarily manifest themselves until we actually come to do something. And I'll give you a great example. The first time I was eligible to vote, I went down to the polling station and voted in exactly the same way as my parents did. That was not a conscious decision. I didn't have any particular political affiliation. I wasn't really interested. I was in a rock band, so I was the anarchist, and I was going to rule the world anyway, right? So I didn't really have any kind of motivation for anything, but I just went down and did it, and I voted in exactly the same way. And it wasn't until I started doing this session that I ever really thought about that. But actually, that is a completely inherited mindset. It's a completely inherited attitude and set of beliefs. And if that's the case, and it can affect things just on that level, how many times does an inherited mindset or an inherited belief influence us in other ways, particularly within our business? So, James, you had an interesting example as well, where something similar has happened to you as well.
Yeah, I grew up going to quite a strict junior school, and where very much the mindset was you're either good at something or you're not. And has anybody ever heard anybody say, I'm no good at maths? I can hear some of you saying, yeah, putting their hands up virtually. Well, we were made to stand up in class and recite our times tables in the junior school that I went to, and he'd master if you got them wrong, where he would click in your face like that the answer of the times tables. And it instilled a mindset in me, pretty much so, that, well, I was no good at maths. I was no good at sums. I was no good at maths. And I was never, ever going to be any good at maths because I couldn't stand up in a class and do my times tables. And it's a really, really great example of building probably a negative mindset in me that I was never going to be any good at maths. So maybe I debunked part of that by ending up working for one of the largest high street banks. But it's very, very definitely true, Josh. I agree with you. And we've talked about this many times before, about how where we come from and what we grow up in can determine what we think about ourselves and our abilities and even our entrepreneurship skills. Massively so, and we don't necessarily even know it's there as part of our mindset.
Absolutely, spot on. And so what we have to contend with, and what we have to really, really consider in that, is with those tacit behaviors, depending on what your maths teacher was like, and depending on your perception of how good you were at maths when you were a kid, can quite often create barriers within your own mind that mean, oh, that job might involve maths, I'm not even going to apply for that, or I'm not going to go over there because that's an avenue for embarrassment, or whatever it may be. And so the mindsets that we inherit, quite often we don't know what they are. And so it's very, very important that as we go through life, particularly when we find ourselves in situations like we do at the moment as business owners, when we're not quite sure how the best course how the best course to proceed is, we have to make sure that the decisions we make are down to business decisions and business plans, rather than our mindset telling us we can or can't do something. And so to illustrate the power of our mindset, and just to really, really identify it in full, if we could go back to the previous slide. Sorry, there we go. So just to introduce that concept, as we have the chat function, which is brilliant. Just for those of you watching, if I've said to you, if I've framed up that the way that we celebrate the end of this webinar is that we're all going to go and do a tandem skydive together over the city, who'd be well up for that? Just let people send a few comments in. James is well up for that. Sally's on the fence.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's a few others that come in. Yeah. But quite often what happens is some people will have been well up for it. James is the perfect example of that. You go, yeah, absolutely, I'll do that, no problem at all. And then Mickey's that's just commented, no, definitely not, from Mickey. Laura does that every Monday. Zoe, definitely a no from Zoe. No thanks, not a bit of it. So there's quite a few quite a balanced view actually. A few yeses, few nos, which is normal. Now, for those of you that said yes, okay, great. That's not necessarily the right or wrong answer. I'm personally on the side of the no's. I personally don't believe in throwing myself out of an aeroplane if the engines are working. So I'm more, yeah, I'm more with Joe. I'll applaud from the ground. But those of us that have said no, it's quite an interesting one, because those that say yes, I quite often find have done it previously and they've had a great experience, or perhaps they're more of that, what we would call an adrenaline junkie, or whatever label you want to use. For those of us that have said no, quite often there can be something in there that's motivating that, maybe a fear of heights, or a history of vertigo, whatever it is. But more often than not, it's a gut reaction on the basis of what we've seen and what we've perceived, rather than actual facts. I'll give you an example. I'm considering it very unlikely that any of us that have said no have ever been involved in a skydive that went wrong. You don't hear from too many people that have been in the skydive that have gone wrong. And so as a result, you have to make sure that actually what's happening here is my no based on a complete gut reaction, or is my no based on actual facts? And whilst it's completely understandable that throwing yourself out of an aeroplane attached to a frame tent would send most people going into that sort of survival instinct of, no, I don't need to do that. But actually quite often we're basing that on what we think and what we perceive rather than what we know. Now, obviously that's an extreme example, but if we apply that to any kind of situation where as an entrepreneur we feel uncomfortable, then quite often we could be saying no to an awful lot of things because we tell ourselves we shouldn't do that, or because we tell ourselves, oh, we can't do that, or that's too risky. Whereas actually, if we haven't got the facts, it could well be the best course of action to take, but we're talking ourselves out of it because it makes us feel uncomfortable. That's the power of our mindset. And in situations like this, there can be a desire, particularly as business owners, to do what we call it the Rubberband Principle, which is let's just get back to how we used to be as quickly as possible. In some cases, in quite a lot of cases, that's not going to be a prudent course of action for an awful lot of us. And any action that's available to us, or any avenue that's available to us, could be quite uncomfortable. And so it's around how do we use our mindset when it's capable of making so many decisions in a split second for us that in this case may hold us back. How do we move that forward, and how do we start to feel more comfortable? And so to do that, we classify our mindset in two different ways: fixed or growth mindset. Now, those of you that said yes were examples of a growth mindset in that situation. Those of you that said no were in examples of a fixed mindset. Now, before I go any further, I want to completely debunk the myth that a growth mindset is the only mindset that successful entrepreneurs have, and a fixed mindset is always bad. Absolutely not. In this case, those of you that just said no and had a fixed mindset, it's there to keep you alive. It's very, very difficult to paint that in a bad way. I'm also not saying that you have to have a growth mindset all the time, and that some people, like I, might be a growth mindset and James might be a fixed mindset. Every single one of us on this call, in Exeter, on planet Earth, is a lovable mass of both. And we'll all have different fixed and growth mindsets around how we were brought up, the skills that we have, maybe the degree that we do, or the business that we operate within. And that's absolutely fine. What I'm not here to do, and what we're not here to do, is say you have to have a growth mindset about everything all the time in order to be a successful entrepreneur. Definitely not. But if I asked you to dial in on your business and go, right, where do you think you're strong and where do you think you're weak? 9 times out of 10, the areas where we think we're strong are the areas that we excel, that we spend most time and that we engage with most readily within a business. The areas where we have a fixed mindset are the areas that we try and shy away from, we procrastinate over, we'll perhaps try and do anything but process them. So to pick on James's example for a second, anything that involved maths historically would sort of be shied away from, or I'll do it, or I'll move away, and so on and so on and so on. Whereas actually planning an event now, interesting story, and we'll hear from that in a bit more detail in a minute, that's going to be something that he'll happily throw himself into. And so it's important that we understand in what areas of our business we're more likely to have that fixed mindset, and particularly the ones that we feel are holding us back. Those are the ones that it's important to work on. So we're going to explore these in a bit more detail and go into exactly what they mean. I'm going to hand over to James, who's going to go through a fixed mindset to begin with.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I was introduced to fixed and growth mindset. I don't want to steal the thunder from some of my later slides. Around about 2016, I'd never even heard that this was even a concept. I wasn't even aware of some of the areas within myself that fixed. So very much the underlying principles for all of us when it comes to a fixed mindset, and you can see on the slide there the perspective that character, intelligence, and creative ability are fixed, i.e. you're not in control, i.e. you could even say that you're born with it. You're born with a set of skills that are a part of you. And a great example to bring that to life for you as a metaphor is the classic phrase, I'm a sporty person. Hands up on the screen. Has anybody ever said to you, well, I am a sporty person, or I'm not a sporty person? You put yourself into one or two camps when it comes to giving it a go, having a try at something new, maybe starting a new class, thinking about something in your life that maybe you've never attempted before. I am just not a sporty person. I even caught myself saying that before about my 2 children. I've got 6-year-old twin girls, and I said, one of them's called Micah, one of them's called Bella. And I said, yeah, Micah's really sporty, Bella's not as sporty. And I found myself saying those words that have power into my children's lives. And I started to think about that. And when it comes to fixed mindset as well, it's often about tasks that perhaps, as Josh has alluded to a moment ago, tasks that we avoid. And that mindset that says, when I fail, I'm no good. Not the growth mindset side of things, which what that means. But when I fail, I am a failure. I failed at something. I've tried something. I've took a risk. I've gone out. I've tried something in my business and it hasn't worked. And lessons that I've learned, what that's taught in me as a person, how that's grown me as a person, how that's grown my soul, if you like, and my abilities. I'm going to think about how that determines everything. And another great example to bring that to life for you was back in January when we were alone. It was my 6-year-old twin's birthday party, and we hired in because they love Disney, and it was magnificent. And we had this, and we played some party games, and it was really interesting to watch one child in particular who just did not want to join in any of the games at all. Bless her, she didn't want to know. I could see she was desperate to join in. And when I said to her mum, "Is your little girl okay? Does she not want to join in?" She said, "Oh, no. She won't play unless she can win." And I started to talk to her mum all about growth mindset at that time and what it meant and what those principles meant about having a growth mindset compared to a fixed mindset, about when you fail, you learn. And she'd never even heard of it before. And it's amazing how many of us will have those innate things within us that we won't try something in our business. We won't have a go at that, what we feel might be our gut telling us to do something, that entrepreneurial idea that we have, because we feel that we're not going to be any good at it, because we're going to fail at it, because it's not something I've ever done before and I'm going to be good at. We shy away from those things. Perhaps as well in us as people, some clear signs that we have a fixed mindset are perhaps when we get feedback. It might be negative, it might be a defensive reaction, rather than taking that feedback on board and using it as a power to get better for the next time. All these areas are things that would sort of highlight a fixed mindset. And as Josh said before, they don't necessarily mean they're all bad things. They're weights and checks on our character, on our mind, and on our thoughts. But when it comes to thinking about fixed things, that's really laying out to you what a fixed mindset characteristics are and what they have. Over to you, Josh.
Thanks very much, James. So, yeah, it's a perfect example of what a fixed mindset is. Now, you know what, Joe's just made a great point, and I'm going to come on to that in just a second. You know, Thomas Edison said something about not having failed, just finding 10,000 ways that didn't work. You know, he actually famously said he failed his way to success. And that's a really, really interesting point, because you're right. A fixed mindset is that perspective that you're good at what you're good at what you're born with, and that's about it. And anything else is always going to be a struggle. Now, I personally tend to think that way on an annual basis, generally around the third week of January. And that is because, obviously, like everybody over Christmas, I overindulge. It gets to January the 1st, and I'm like, right, I'm going back to the gym. I'm going to be super healthy. I'm going to work this time. And so you go there on January the 2nd, and you work away, and you go home, and you feel great. You have a smoothie. I'm sort of getting myself measured up for all these tight-fitting shirts and all this kind of stuff. And then it gets to the third week in January, and the nights are still dark, and it's raining, and you're in the office at 5:30, and I'm going, God, I really hurt from the gym yesterday. And you know what? If I go to the gym, sod's law, I'll be there sweating away on the treadmill at 3 miles an hour, and Hercules will get on the treadmill next to me. And some people are just born for that, and other people are just, I'm good at eating donuts, and that's the way it is. And actually, that's not the right perspective. You know, it's very much a case of, I talk myself out of it, so I don't go, and then I never go back. And I think that's a cycle that a lot of people can probably relate to, and a lot of people fall into, where you're motivated for a while, but when it starts to hurt, when it starts to get harder, it's very easy to just hold your hand and go, some people are good at it, some people aren't. But actually, if we look at a growth mindset, you have the perspective that you can change and grow through effort, application, and experience. In other words, if I want to get better, if I want to be healthier, if I want to be better at running or whatever it is, that is completely down to me. And whilst there are excuses and there are people that will have better physical attributes for something, that defines them. It does not define my ability to do anything in any way. And so the best example I can give with this is Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, I am fairly sure, loses precisely 0 sleep about the thought of a 100-meter dash with me, right? Because, and it's very easy for me to go, if I was in a race with him, I would just be like, well, he's got more leg than torso, he's super lean, he's got all the time in the world to practice, so why on earth would I do that? I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it. And whilst, yes, okay, he does have very long legs, and yes, he's very, very lean, actually the key to it comes down to that third point, which is that he practices all the time. The reason why he is so good at running is because he's done it a lot more than me. Yes, okay, diet comes into it, and discipline, and so on and so on. But all of those things I'm putting up as excuses. The reason that he's a better runner than me is because he's done it more than me. And if I want to get better at running, it's really down to me and nobody else. And if it hurts, it's about going back to the gym. It's about finding a reason to go back. And so this year, actually, I bucked the trend. After 3 years of delivering this workshop, I actually finally went, right, what can I do differently to keep myself going? And so I basically defined and worked out that I am the kind of person, I do fall into that wonderful tag of millennial, just about. And so obviously I feed off that millennial need and desire for instant gratification and so on and so on. I am the Amazon Prime generation and all this kind of thing. And so I realized that actually the way that I'm going to keep going back to the gym, even when I hurt, is if the last workout that I did was the best one I've ever done. And it always needs to be. And so what I meant by that is I just use the notes app on my phone, and every single time, I'm a very, very simple man in many ways, but particularly in the gym, I go use the treadmill and I use the bike. And basically, as long as every workout I went 1 meter further or 1 minute longer on both pieces of apparatus, that was the best workout I'd done, or I burnt off 1 more calorie than the last time. And so as a result, because I did that and because I kept tracking it, I kept going. Because I constantly felt the progress. Yes, okay, fine. I didn't wake up the morning after the third workout, and I wasn't, like a David Hasselhoff kind of lookalike, which was distressing, but also probably a blessing. But at the same time, I'd always done one better, and I felt a sense of progress, and that's what kept me going. And it's quite often a lack of a sense of progress, or we take our eye off that sense of achievement that means that our fixed mindsets come back. But by constantly documenting workouts and so on, I constantly felt like I was making progress. I constantly felt like I was going, yeah, do you know what? I'm better at this. And so I stuck to it. And it was, the only reason that I didn't go to, the only reason I stopped going to the gym was because of coronavirus. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it anyway. But genuinely, I kept going to the gym until March, and I've never done that. In all honesty, I'm that kind of person that I pay for a gym membership 365 days a year and use it about 20 of those days. But this year I completely bucked the trend with that. And I'm actually looking forward to going back, mainly because all the weight I lost I put back on. But that's the example of when you have a fixed rather than a growth mindset. And Mickey's point that he's just made is absolutely the right one. It takes time and commitment. But it's believing in, it's having that sense that if I want to be good at running, or if I want to improve my skill at maths, or if I want to overcome my fear of HR and policy so that I can recruit a person, I'm in control of that. And it's not a case of being able to suck it up and just go, yes, okay, I need to be good at everything. I need to be good at everything now. It's giving yourself that allowance and that time to go, to Mickey's point, this is going to take some time. It's going to take some commitment, but I'm in control of this, and I'll stay in control of this. And it can be very, very hard to say and very, very difficult to do. But what we're going to talk about now is the examples of how James and I have both actually lived that journey and have those examples. Because it's not just a case of you are one or the other and that's how it stays. And it's not just a case that if you have a growth mindset right now, it will always be. And the same with a fixed mindset. So James, over to you for your example to begin with.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And I'm just taking in some of the points that people are making. I love the bit about flirting. I'm going to write that one down and use that for the future. I think for me, if I start at the bottom of that slide, and I replace public speaking with when I started in the role that I'm doing now, and many people would have got to know a little bit about me in and around Exeter and the NatWest Boost events that I run. Immensely proud of the fact that they've become probably the most successful NatWest Boost events in the country. We've got the highest feedback customer service scores in the UK, and just won an Exeter Living Award in 2020 for the Business Services Award. Something that I never thought would ever happen or I'd even never get close to. It wasn't, in fact, even a dream when I started doing the role. When I started doing the role, I had such a fixed mindset. I hadn't even heard, as I said to you, about what growth mindset meant. I was in a meeting whilst we were brainstorming about how we were going to create this brand new role that I'd just been given. And my colleague looked at me and said to me, James, you're talking from a fixed mindset. You need to go and Google fixed growth mindset and work out what that means. So I went away. And for those of you who've maybe never heard the fantastic TED Talk by Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K, then Google it and read it, listen to it, get it into your soul. It's a fantastic talk. And in fact, they're even using it in my children's school now. But my point is this. I was given a brief to run events as well as many other areas. And I'm just going to use the event area as an example, that I had to get at least 20 people to every event for it to be a success. I'd never run an event before in my life. I had absolutely no idea really of how I was going to start, how I was going to get people there, how I was going to build a social media presence, how I was going to even reach Exeter. It was absolutely something alien to me. And I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. The first event I think I ran, I had 6 people. Some of you may have heard that story, 6 people. Fast forward to last year's Christmas event, I sold over 100 tickets in 14 minutes, and I have 120 people on the waiting list. I'm a living, breathing example that when you cultivate, when you feed, when you work on having a growth mindset, it really can change what you do and how you do it. I started to take risks. I started to think of ideas that were in my head and go outside of my comfort zone. I started to apply something called the Disney theory to my events, and Google that as well. The Disney theory. Walt Disney would get all of his ideas onto a wall with a team. They'd sit down and they would literally just dream. They would throw their ideas out, and then they would move it to the final stage, which was the critic stage, where they would analyze all those ideas and find out which of those ideas would be potentially workable. Then they would start to work on them. And I started to think about this with speakers, with who would we get to come and speak, kind of subjects that we would get. The word got out, more and more people started to come. And I suppose you could say the rest, certainly up until what's been going on recently, is history, and become a real place for the business community to thrive, which was a vision of mine, a place where people could come, they could share ideas, they could win new business from each other, but they could also hear really great speakers. In fact, I've got an even bigger vision in my head that, stadium full of people, and hear some really great business speakers talk about how they grow their business and make every person feel in every seat like that talk was relevant to them. And I started that process from 6 people, never having run an event, but choosing to have a growth mindset. That if I'm just going to fail at this, if it wasn't going to work, then we were going to learn for the next time. And gradually they built. And like Mickey's point earlier, sometimes you have to give time and commitment. And what Josh was saying about the gym, I'm a living, breathing example of moving from fixed to growth. And I can use the business, if you like, within NatWest, the NatWest Boost brand that I've been part of creating, to show that really when you do something and you apply a growth mindset approach to it, and when I fail, I learn approach to it, like the Thomas Edison scenario a moment ago. I found 10,000 ways that didn't work. I haven't failed. And those kind of things should really, hopefully, fire each one of us up to think about how we're going to face this crisis. How are we going to move from areas that we've never done before, areas in our business that we've never tried before? The classic word that we're all hearing a lot at the moment is, how are we going to pivot? How are we going to take our business online? How are we going to do something digital that we've never done before? How are we going to build infrastructures for our business? Who we collaborate with? Who are we going to bring in to our business to help us when it comes to thinking about how do we do that? And those are some areas I really hope today that encourage people. They make you feel empowered and uplifted. This isn't just about whipping up a storm inside of you to feel, like you're pumped up before a big run or, a sporting event. This is something real that will grow and that will cultivate inside of you, inside of your soul, like I've used that word before today, and will really help you to grow. And I know that Josh is just going to take you through one or two of the examples of his own journey or other journeys on that one too. Over to you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, James. I think it's actually, I'll make my point in a minute, but I'm really interested in the point that Joe made on the chat sort of about 5 minutes ago now, which is, I guess a lot of this is recognizing which mindset you're in when viewing a particular task. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And if this session has sort of resonated with you, my first exercise, or as a suggestion, I would note down everything that, your business does or everything that you do within your business, and then grade every single one of those actions, 10 being I'm super confident or super growth mindset with this, and 0 being I hate this, I will literally crawl through fire instead of doing this if I could. And then it's about all the ones that are 10, look, they're in pretty good place, right? They're the ones that are sort of keeping you afloat right now. But all the 0s, the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, look at those and go, in a post-COVID world, which of these fixed mindsets is actually really likely to hold me back? And that's the one to explore, and that's the one to do, because actually when it comes down to mindset, yes, with everything we've talked about, hopefully we've kind of fostered the sense of, yes, we're in control, and yes, you can change the mindset, but actually the only way you're going to do that is if you have the desire to do so as well. So, and I quite often find that desire comes from identifying where the weak points are and picking that 1, maybe 2 to focus on, and allow yourself to do it. And give yourself that time. As James said, it took time to foster that new mindset. It took proof. It took that sense of progress. It took a sense of progress for me to keep going back to the gym. And so don't expect yourself to be great overnight, but give yourself that starting point of identifying this is the fixed mindset that I have at the minute that is perhaps holding me back, that I want to explore and develop further. The final point I want to raise on this slide, which will be really, really quick, is just James has talked about how he turned a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. And that can quite often take time. Sometimes it doesn't, but quite often it takes time. What doesn't, however, is sometimes having a growth mindset and changing to a fixed. All that takes is one experience sometimes. And now this can happen in your business, it can happen in your personal life. But I think everybody, if I challenge them, could probably think of or identify in their head one thing that they used to do all the time that they've stopped doing for whatever reason. And the one that I've stopped doing personally is I think of myself as a bit of a bit of a chef, a bit of a cook. I watch the Saturday Kitchen and all that kind of stuff, note down recipes, make them, like having people over. And so myself and my girlfriend recently bought our first house, and last Christmas was our first Christmas in it where we weren't surrounded by boxes. And so we kind of went, right, well, for the last 5 or 6 years, we've had to be apart on Christmas Day. You go to your family, I'll go to mine, so on and so on. And so we said, no, if you want to see us this year, you've all got to come round. And we kind of hoped they'd leave us alone. And so obviously 10 people file into our house at about 11 o'clock on Christmas morning. And I was obviously cooking, and I was thinking, this is great, this is brilliant, this is an opportunity to sort of not show off, but, sort of put a nice spread on and all this kind of stuff. And I was anticipating all the praise and all this kind of stuff. And because I'd never cooked a meal that big for that many before, everything that I could see, I stayed in control of. Everything that I couldn't and that was out of sight, i.e. in the oven, it all got a bit Cajun, if I'm honest with you. And as a result, serving dry turkey, overdone roast potatoes, all this kind of thing, everybody was far too polite, and it was far too, Christmassy and good cheer for anybody to say, Josh, this is a disaster. But my ego took a massive hit. And so whereas normally we'd have people over most weekends and so on, January, February, I was just like, nah, let's not. I don't want to do it this weekend. Let's just have a break. Christmas was only just over. I was finding reasons not to do it. One experience, one day, real growth mindset to actually pretty fixed. And if I'm honest with you, I haven't missed cooking for people throughout this entire time. Whereas normally I'd be itching to get back to that kind of thing. I'd be inviting people over for barbecues, seeing as that's the thing that we can do. And I'm aware that I'm still in it. And it's something I've got to do about it. So the point from this slide is, as James has evidenced, if you've got a fixed mindset, if something's been holding you back for years, decades, you can do something about it. But equally, to Sally's point, it only takes a second to gain a phobia, so don't take those growth mindsets for granted either. And what we mean by that is make sure that you're regularly reflecting on where your mindset is, whether that's a journal, whether that's 5 minutes, whether you like to do that while you're going for a run. Build regular reflection into part of your daily life, particularly in a business owner. For me, the way you get out of that, Mickey, is to challenge yourself, find a way to control it, find a way to step back and go, right, this is how I feel. This is how I'm in a really, I feel, to use my example, cooking at the moment makes me feel anxious that I'm going to mess it up, I'm going to look stupid, and I'm going to disappoint the people that I invite round. And so for me, the way that I look at that, and the way that if I step back and go, right, how can I control that? Well, the first thing I can do to control that is I can identify something that's relatively simple to make. I can minimize the number of people that come around at once, maybe one person, two people, so that there's not going to be this en masse. It takes the pressure off myself. It means that it's something I'm probably going to have cooked before. That means that it's going to be relatively easy for me to make or replicate. And once that first process, once you've broken that stigma for the first time, you've served something, it didn't go wrong, you're not going to be back. I'm not going to be sailing where I used to before, but I'm going to feel more comfortable. I'm going to be more willing to go again and be slightly more ambitious. But it's around stepping back and asking yourself that question: what's going to allow me to feel in control? You can't be wrong. You can't be wrong with that. There is no right or wrong with that. And whatever's going to allow you to feel in control, that's the first step. But don't imagine I just need to snap out of this, or don't imagine that, oh, I've got to be better at that by tomorrow. Just set yourself that first step. What's the first thing I want to do to feel in control? So the final point that I want to make really ties into mindset in general, which is this: E plus R equals O, or event plus reaction equals outcome. And what we mean by this is any event, be that, cooking, be that presenting live in James's situation, whatever it may be, whatever happens to you, how you react will have a direct impact on the outcome. And so right back to James's point at the beginning, if you've always told yourself historically you're bad at maths, guess what? If a mathematical equation comes up, if you're helping your kid with the homework, it's like, your dad or your mom can help you with that, or whatever it is. You'll find ways to avoid it. But we're choosing to do that on the basis of information that, in James's case, I'm imagining it's decades old, James,
yeah.
Just to have a slight jab. Yeah, so you're telling yourself something that hasn't. There you go, you see. So that information is old. Would you trust it? Would a bank trust information that old to make a mortgage decision? No. Would you trust that information? Would you use a set of instructions that are 35 years old? Probably not, right? And yet we tell ourselves and we allow ourselves to believe all this stuff. So whenever an event happens to us, whatever that may be, how we choose to react will have a direct impact on the outcome. And on the basis of how often our mindset can make a decision for us, like the skydiving example, it's important to make sure that we're regularly in touch with where our fixed mindsets are, so that we know when they're likely to rear their heads, we know when they're likely to take control, and when our growth mindset can really, really push us forward. So the next time you find yourself in a difficult situation, remember E plus R equals O. Challenge yourself. Am I in control of this decision, or actually is something else at work here? It's going to be difficult. It's going to be uncomfortable the first times you begin to do that. But the more that you do it, the more that you realize it, the more it becomes routine. Actually, the more in control of your mindset you're going to be. So that's what we wanted to talk about with you this afternoon. Hopefully that's sown a seed for you, and hopefully that sort of resonated with you. And if there's something that, by myself or James talking, you've gone, oh yeah, I used to do that and I need to start doing that again. Or do you know what? I need to start doing that, because that's a really, really good point. Give yourself a by when. If you know you're going to do it, or you want to start something again, by when. It's Monday today. So is Friday a perfect opportunity to set up? Or whatever, or to have begun that, whatever it may be, give yourself that time scale as well. And if we can support you with that, there's loads of mindset development modules available on the Business Builder portal as well, or you can join us for one of our webinars coming up. But conscious that there may be some questions, do send them in. James, was there anything that I've missed? I don't think so, but is there anything else that you wanted to say before we sort of hand over to you to round?
No, just on that last point, we can't change any of us in our businesses at the moment.
I think you broke up.
But we're at home. Sorry, we can't change what may be happening in and around us at the moment, but we can change how we react to it. And I think that's something I'm trying to certainly apply. Being down with 6 years, massively challenging now, solely working from home until at least in September. I cannot change the fact that they haven't got a vaccine yet. I cannot change any of this stuff. But I can change how I react to that, how I react to my kids, how I react to all those things. And we can change, all of us, and we can cultivate a growth mindset and start to change about how we, all of us, I'm saying this to myself, how we react to things. And I think that's the most important thing that I take away from a session like this, is going forward, I can control how I react in my business to a lot of these things. I can control that. I can't be in control of the fact that what's going to happen in the financial climate in the next 6 months, but I can control how James Court reacts to that. And I think that's the most important thing.
Just wanted to pick up on Martin's made a point, that there's some food for thought there, which is absolutely brilliant. That was really our intention from this session. And James is right. Whatever that food for thought is, always give yourself that challenge. It's a great point James has made, to just focus on what can you control, because there is a tendency within us to think about all the reasons why we can't do something because of the conditions around us. But don't focus on those. Try and strip those limiting considerations away and go, well, no, what can I control? Best example that we could give of that actually is Jen. I'm going to tell the story that Andy Jackson has shared with both of us, which is that one of our colleagues worked with an entrepreneur who was having a really, really difficult time balancing his work and family life, and so every time he got home, he knew he was already stressed up before he went through the door. He would get through the door and there'd be kids bikes blocking the front door, and so on and so on. So he'd get in, he'd immediately shout at the kids. His wife would then shout at him for shouting at the kids, and generally there was just the reaction when he walked through the door of, oh, Dad's home. And that really started to affect him, and that really, really started to have a negative impact on how he was operating and how effective he was in his business, and so on and so on. And so Andy, our colleague, challenged him and said, right, you can't control what your kids do before you go home. All you can control is your reaction when you walk through the door. And if you know you're going to get angry, if you know that you're going to get, if you know that you're going to sort of intimidate or whatever, scare the kids, you're in control of that. So how can you control the narrative here? How can you control what's done differently? And so all he did, he made one change. He got there, he put his hand on the door handle, he took a deep breath and went, whatever the other side of this door looks like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to kiss Caroline, and then I'm going to say hi to the kids. And so it might have involved him fighting his way over a bike. It might have involved him tripping over or whatever it is, but he changed that. And as a result, the environment completely changed. And because he actually went in, said hi to his wife first, got himself a drink, went and said hi to the boys, and then went, now come on boys, I've told you about this, please, don't leave your bike there because Daddy can't get in. Not only did his work-life balance improve, not only did his relationships at home, but the behavior of his kids changed as well. And so just by changing something that he was in control of, the entire situation changed. And it's quite often the things that we overlook. We overlook our involvement. We overlook our presence. We overlook how much we control. That's what we need to identify. But I just think that's a great example, and it really ties in with what Martin and what Sally have just said in the comments. Sorry, James, I kind of co-opted what you were saying there.
That's great. Thank you, Josh, and thank you, James, and everyone else for your participation as well in the chat there. I think we're a bit over on time, but if anyone has got any last-minute questions, then please do pop them in the chat. I think I'm right in saying, James, you're on Twitter, and Josh, you are as well, so I'm sure people can speak to you there. Yeah. And we've popped the link to the Business Builder if anyone's interested in doing that.
Brilliant. Are you happy for me to just drop the Business Builder mailbox in the chat, or would you rather just leave the URL?
You can pop the mailbox in there, I think, if people want to know more, that's fine. And yeah, I think I found myself nodding along to a lot of that and thinking about where my mindset could change. So very helpful, and I'm sure everyone else was nodding along too. I think Sally, before we go.
Yeah, James, Josh, thank you so much indeed for that. Sorry, I was just a little bit late. Health and safety moment. Can I just say it was a really great presentation, and it was discussing growth and fixed mindsets is just so important right now, and this choice about how you take it forward. So thank you so much for that.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for asking me. Well, yeah, particularly, and thank you, James, for asking me.
Well, Exeter's a great place. We're a great business community, and never before have we needed to pull together and encourage each other at a time like this, and it's to be part of that, and to be here today, and if we can encourage and help build people up in shape or form, and that's what this whole thing's about, and Business Builder's about, and just coming alongside entrepreneurs and you know, you guys are doing the tough stuff. You know, you're out there risking things. You know, if we can help you on that journey, then that to me, that's, you know, big tick in the box, job done. That's what lights me up on Josh up on the inside. So yeah, please plug in.
Absolutely, yeah. If we can support the email addresses in there, but fingers crossed, we may actually be able to see you in person at some point, and that would be wonderful. But we'll see on that
yes.
one.
Great stuff. Well, if there's no questions, I will end there. And thanks very much for everyone for joining us.
Take care, everybody.
Bye bye.
Everybody, cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.